He broke me. His horrific actions did a lot of damage, and it took a lot of years to work through. When we don't like or love ourselves and we go through a hardship, unfortunately, it's worse because we beat ourselves up and we don't know what we deserve. So many survivors do not have a parent or an adult that did what my mom did. Sadly, I can't tell you the amount of stories that anger. When we hold that anger inside, we're like vinegar. Can you drink 5, 6, 7, 8 cups of vinegar a day? No, you'd be really sick. That's what happens when we hold that vinegar inside of us. All of us are going to encounter hurts and hardships and emotional pains, all of us. And unfortunately, for some of us, that was trauma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me, Stories of Hope, Gratitude, and Resilience. And today I am so fortunate to have as a guest, Cathy Studer. Cathy is a survivor of long-term child sexual abuse. After pulling together the pieces of her own shattered life, she discovered her purpose in helping others find wholeness, joy, and fulfillment. This passion led her to become a mental health advocate, child abuse prevention advocate, speaker, and award-winning author. She's on a mission to help children and adults unlock, cultivate, and reach their full potential by building towards a healthy, resilient growth mindset. She lives in Ohio with her husband and their yellow lab, Levi. Cathy loves spending time with her 2 adult children and grand dogs. And her 2 books are The Adventures of Gus and Pasha, which is actually a 6-book series, and Broken to Beautifully Whole. Cathy, welcome to the program. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Well, it's an honor to be here, Kelly. So thank you so much for the invite.
So, Cathy, just to start, for our listeners who may not know much about your work, can you give us an overview of, how you came to be doing this work? What brought you to the place you are today?
Well, thank you. I would be happy to. I tell people that if you would have came to me honestly about 7 years ago and said, "Hey, Cathy, you're going to write a book. You're going to share your very personal story with the world," I would have said, "You're crazy. You're smoking something. That's not happening." But a calling for a purpose I never saw coming said otherwise. Hairstylist by trade. And it was a client in my chair who struggled with depression, anxiety, and PTSD, who shared her story one day as to her why she struggled. And she was also a survivor of child sexual abuse. I then shared my story. And during our conversation, she asked me why I didn't suffer to her degree. First, let me tell you, I had a journey of healing that took many years. But honestly, I didn't suffer to her degree, but I couldn't answer her question. At the end of our conversation, she looked me in the eye and she said, "Girlfriend, you need to write a book." Well, I left it off that day and I thought, I'm not going to write a book. I'm not going to share the story. But her question bugged me. And I started doing research, a lot of reflection, introspection. And 8 months later, I had the answer to her question, and another calling for a purpose led me to write that book and then publish my book, Broken to Beautifully Whole. And in that book, I share my story of, yes, I'm a survivor of long-term child sexual abuse by my stepfather. He started abusing me at night. My mom worked nights because she got paid more money to support the family. And unfortunately, it started age 6, and my stepfather abused me until I was age 12 when my mom found out. And thankfully, she was my hero and kicked my stepfather out of the house. And so again, in my book, I share that journey, what it was like through the eyes of a child, And then I also share 6 attributes that I added into my life that not only helped me pull all my broken pieces back together, but they played a massive role in my mental and my emotional healing because unfortunately, mental health consequences are the number one consequences after childhood trauma like that. And then I also create a call for purpose for others to take action today to help defeat the childhood sexual abuse statistics. You also mentioned my children book, so I'll roll real quick into I was at a speaking engagement talking about my first book, and a member in the audience who had read my book said, Cathy, I think your 6 attributes you shared that helped your mental and your emotional health are powerful. One of the most powerful parts you share, she said, with the mental health crisis with our children, why would you not take these attributes and turn them into children's books? I hadn't thought about that. But I met with a pediatric psychologist here locally, and we talked about it, and he strongly encouraged me to do this. And so helped encourage me to move on. So that's how the adventures of Gus and Pasha came to be, to help all children build stronger mental and emotional health. Because the reality is, as we all know, is all of us are going to encounter hurts and hardships and emotional pains, all of us. And unfortunately, for some of us, that was trauma.
Yeah.
And no matter what any of our children are going to go through, these are just means to plant the seeds to help our children not only navigate the challenges of life, but potentially even thrive. And so, again, never saw this coming, but here we are, and I'm on a mission.
I love your mission. It's and you know, when we're called to do these kinds of things, I know I didn't expect to be doing this at this point in my life either, but you know, sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a shout, and you have to listen to it, don't you?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can't deny your truth. And I think, do you feel that once you get to a certain point in your life that um, you know, you reflect back over what has happened to you with a little bit of wisdom? You've grown, you've married, you've had children of your own, um, and you recognize the importance of sharing stories, sharing our stories, and how, you know, it's kind of a responsibility of ours to help others.
Very much so. And during this process, when I was getting ready to publish, saying I was petrified is realistically an understatement because my story was so vulnerable and less than 10 people in the world knew my story. So I had friends and family members who did not know my story, and I was scared. And even though I was in a great place, I learned very quickly of the reflection you just talked about, that I still had a tiny piece of shame hanging on inside of me saying, well, what will people think about me? What will people say about me? That inner child still wants to be liked and loved.
Yeah.
And will they look at me differently? But man, through some massive reflection, introspection, and prayer within that fear, because it was immense, my answer back was, it's time. It's time to share your story. It is time to help others. We all heal differently, but
Mhm.
within sharing our stories, obviously the hope is someone else can take a piece or a couple pieces of what we did and apply that in their own lives, but also know, I think it's so important for other people to know you're not alone. Someone else has gone through this. And how did they work through it? How did they navigate it? And you're right. I do think it takes a certain point in your life to get to that and know that, okay, there's empowerment. If this helps one other, two others, three others, then it's worth it.
Absolutely. I have to say the cover of your book, Broken to Beautifully Whole, is so beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful, and I was struck by it because I actually look at healing much like the art of kintsugi. The logo for this very podcast is a broken heart coming back together. And how you put it back together, not quite the same as it was originally. There's always going to be little pieces moved around or shifted or missing. But that you are more valuable because you put yourself back together, and more beautiful because of it. And I just, you guys, listeners, if you're listening to this on audio, and I strongly encourage you to get the book, but just have a look at the cover because it's stunning. And I actually got goosebumps when I looked at it because it's just beautiful. And it tells a story before you even crack the cover open to start reading. It really does. You talked about the healing attributes. Can you speak a little bit more to what those healing attributes are for you?
Sure. The first one was a healthy perspective. And what I learned on my own journey is the way we see life matters with how we experience life. And a lot of us know the term glass half full, glass half empty. And all of us can have moments of each. That's normal. That's real life. Yet, I know if we live continually in that glass half empty, it affects our healing. It affects our mindset and it affects our perspective. And it matters. That perspective matters. It doesn't mean we use false positivity. It doesn't mean that we look at the world in Pollyannish way at all. It just means we don't continually focus on what's wrong and what's bad. It means we see it, we feel it, and we let it go. And we look for at least one good thing to see or one good thing to be grateful for. My second, resilience, building resilience. And a lot of us know that when we go through the hard things, yes, we build our resilience. Yet I can also share that when we have a negative perspective continually, it actually tears down our resilience, which is why you can sometimes see people who've gone through a lot of tough stuff, but don't have a healthy perspective, or they don't appear to be as resilient. And
Mhm.
that's why. So when we pull ourselves back up and we keep going, rather it's one day at a time, one step at a time, we build our resilience. And it doesn't mean we're not going to have mistakes or failures. It just means we get back up. Gratitude is the third. Uh, Gratitude has so much value in so many ways. And every day is not a good day. And some days are pretty darn yucky. And some days we feel bad. But even on those yucky days, I believe that we can find that one thing, or two things, or even maybe even three to be grateful for. And gratitude is a gift that also helps our mindset. And it works the neurotransmitters in our brain in a very positive way. And it significantly helps to reduce anxiety and depression. And then self compassion would be number four. And I had none. I'm just being honest. I had none for many years. And that's crazy common with child sexual abuse. The shame is immense typically. And a lot of us children, we blame ourselves, or we believe we're bad and it's happening to us because we're so bad. Self compassion is a gift to all of us, male or female, to reduce the shame, It teaches us our worth. It teaches us that we have value. It helps us set boundaries. And more importantly, it helps takes us out of the world of comparison. Because even if we haven't gone through trauma, by default, so many of us live in the world, especially with social media, we live in the world of comparison of what someone else may have or may look like, and we don't. And self comparison helps us. And I think that's one of the reasons it was so important to put in my first book, because it helped reduce the shame. But if I had to pick one of my favorites, and that's hard, if my children's book series, it's like, hey, who's your favorite child? I don't have one. I love them all the same. And I do, but I think there's a piece in my heart more for that one. The name of that book is Ellie Stops Bullying Herself.
Oh.
And without self-compassion, we bully ourselves. And we're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not thin enough. We're not blank enough. Whatever it is, what do we say? Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so clumsy. Oh, I can't do that. Whatever that negative conversation is with ourselves, self-compassion is the gift. And what I've also learned in my lifetime and my own journey is when we don't like or love ourselves and we go through a hardship, unfortunately, it's worse because we beat ourselves up and we don't know what we deserve. But with that little bit of self-love and grace, it makes us easier to get back up, to find that one great thing, that one good thing, that one thing to have gratitude for. And it helps keeps us going. And then forgiveness. Forgiveness is the fifth one. And I'm also going to be honest and tell people that forgiveness for me took well over 30 years. It was not easy. I did not want to forgive my stepfather at all. I didn't think he deserved it. How do you forgive someone who created so much shame? How do you forgive someone who stripped you of your childhood innocence? He never said he was sorry. He never did anything in my mind in the beginning to deserve my forgiveness. And I also want to say next that forgiveness can never, ever, 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 yes, I said ever, be forced for anyone, especially a child. Forgiveness takes time. And let me be very clear as well that forgiveness does not condone the action. It does not mean that they shouldn't be prosecuted as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
It means we let go of the power of the action to give ourselves our power back. More importantly, we let go of the anger and the resentment of what happened to us so we can get our power back.
So well said.
And then last but not least, in my first book, Broken to Beautifully Whole, I talk about faith. And in my children's books, it's about hope. Because we are in the process, the books are in schools for curriculum. And obviously, faith is very touchy in schools, but hope is not. Hope is for everyone, no matter where we're at spiritually or faith. Every hope is the antithesis to depression, anxiety, or trauma. It's that peace of letting us know that there is a glimmer of light, that there is good. And for myself, that faith journey was a long one. My faith landed in a place now that I love, but that wasn't easy for myself because I asked a lot of questions of how could a God exist and let this happen to children? Or does God exist and let this happen to me because I'm bad? Because that's exactly what I thought as a child. And so my journey was not fast. I'm sorry. It was not fast and it took time, but it landed in a good place. And I'm grateful for that. And it connected to my forgiveness because what I will say to go backwards a little bit to forgiveness, I think the biggest piece that I leaned into to fully let go of my anger and resentment was leaning into having empathy, of knowing that something happened to my stepfather that created this to do this to me. It didn't excuse it, it didn't condone it, and it created damage. And I acknowledge that. But I could lean into empathy that something happened to him. And then I did learn after I published my book. My mom did share with me that my stepfather was also sexually abused as a child. Again, doesn't condone it, didn't excuse it,
No.
um, but I could at least have a piece and a form of empathy.
I mean, that's incredible that you could extend empathy in that way, but a true testament that you took those attributes very seriously. Um, what do you think was of all those attributes? And I love each one of them and how honest you are in describing the journey to get there, right? Because it's things like this don't happen overnight
No,
at all. Um,
no,
which one of these do you think was the hardest for you to embrace?
forgiveness. Forgiveness for sure. Forgiveness. And it's in my book, it's the last attribute that I talk about. Um, because again, my anger and my hatred was big because of the damage he created to me. He broke me. His horrific actions did a lot of damage, and it took a lot of years to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, that's why I say it took over 30 years. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't fast, but I'm grateful I stayed in the journey and I'm grateful I was able to let go of the anger and the hatred. But I will also say, I think the only reason I was able to reach that point was because of all of the other attributes and how they helped me, how they strengthened me. You know, you talked about, I have a kintsugi bowl on the front of my book and with lacquered gold. And I share in my book that the attributes were the lacquer. Because when you create that kintsugi bowl, you use either lacquered silver or gold.
Yes.
Why? Because it strengthens it. And so my attributes were the lacquer, pulling me back together. And forgiveness was the last piece to be lacquered on for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I could have added that last piece had I not built up the other pieces.
Yeah. And the relationship that you talk about with self compassion and extending yourself grace, just giving yourself grace. I mean, so often we are so quick to offer grace to others,
Yes.
um, but we don't extend that same grace to ourselves. And so, do you feel like, when you became compassionate of yourself and your own journey, that then that brought you closer to that being able to look at forgiveness and examine it?
Great question. And I would say absolutely without a doubt. It truly did. But I also want to be honest with everybody and say, so you had asked me which one was the hardest, and it was forgiveness for sure. But I want to be honest and say self compassion is probably the one that I catch myself going backwards. And so I think for survivors, healing is evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
we can get to a beautiful place, and I want people to know that there is hope and there is healing. Yet it's not this beautiful straight trajectory. It's messy, it's curves, it's ups and down, it circles back. It's not a straight line at all, and it's not a projection up. And because of the shame and because of I carried that for so long, there are moments where I catch myself being hard on myself, but the gift is when we add it. We create enough awareness to know we're going backwards.
Yes.
So at least when I do go backwards, it's like, whoa, Cathy, what are you doing? You're beating up on yourself. You're being too hard on yourself right now, or you're taking something personally that you should not take personally. That's a fault of some of us. But the gift within self compassion is it raises that awareness to go, girl, stop it. Extend that grace, extend that self love. And no, you're going backwards and you deserve better than that.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like self compassion is something that women struggle with. I'm not saying that men don't have that same journey, but I just think women have more of an internal conversation about who they are and how they feel about themselves. And I had another guest on, and we were laughing about that light bulb moment when you are looking in the mirror and you're realizing what you're saying to yourself as you're putting your makeup on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you're like, I wouldn't speak to a stranger on the street that way. What are you doing talking to yourself like that? But
Absolutely.
it's this quiet little voice, and you aren't aware of it all the time, but you're right. Once you realize it, once you learn the value of self-compassion, you can figure out when you backpedal. And I think backpedaling in that regard is universal. I know that I'm part of that club too, so I've done it plenty. But being aware so that you can get yourself back on track and back on the path. Hey guys, Kelly here. I wanted to jump in and let you know that you can find out more about my work by visiting my website at kellybuckley.com, or you can find my books on Amazon. Okay, back to the episode. You take this incredibly painful journey that you've had in your own life, and I am in awe of your strength and courage, and truly. And you now empower others who are on their own struggles. Talk to me about your work with other people and how you help them, and what you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, I so appreciate that in those words. So I have been blessed to have been invited to speak to different women's groups, different organizations, and even men groups. I got to speak to a local law enforcement group, which was primarily men, and share my story because it isn't just women. Statistically, the majority of the type of trauma that I suffered is young girls or women, but it's also men. And
Mm.
that has been an honor to be able to go out and to speak to different groups and share the attributes, share hope, share healing. And I've also had the opportunity to do some coaching with some people to also help them. And now with my children's books, I've been honored and privileged to go into the schools and read the books to the children. And then in the back of every book I have a summary of key points, activities, and conversation starters. And so we do the activities in the classroom, real time. And that really helps drive home the point or help young children understand the value of that attribute. And I'll just give you a couple examples real quick. Like when we talk about resilience, I share a tennis ball and an egg. And I have a couple volunteer kids come up and we talk about when we will build our resilience, we become like a tennis ball versus when we don't have that resilience, we're more like a raw egg. And what's going to happen when we drop the tennis ball? And so we ask the kids and they talk, I'll talk about it. And then, of course, they count down, drop the tennis ball. The tennis ball bounces back. Okay. Well, when we don't have resilience, what's going to happen if we drop the raw egg? It goes flat. So then we teach the kids the value of let's learn to bounce back, not go splat. And then I'll just share another one real quick. One of my absolute favorites in the fifth book about forgiveness, when we talk about letting go of anger, we have a exploding anger experiment with a lot of people know what happens with vinegar and baking soda. And
Mhm.
when we hold that anger inside of us, which think about it, a lot of us in the world today have a lot of problems with anger. And so we teach them that when we hold that anger inside, we're like vinegar. Can you drink 5, 6, 7, 8 cups of vinegar a day? No, you'd be really sick. That's what happens when we hold that vinegar inside of us. And then we do the countdown and it explodes. And then the other one is with water and baking soda. And when we let go of the anger, we become more like water. Can you have 6, 7, 8 cups of water a day? Why, yes, of course you can. It's good for you. So letting go of anger is good for us. And then we pour it over, nothing happens. So a little bit of anger is okay, which means we have a little bit of vinegar like in our salad dressings. Okay, but a lot is not good. So, yeah, so I've had the opportunity to still speak to groups, coach a few people, and go out and speak to schools now.
I absolutely love that you have exercises that kind of put the attributes into action. Just in terms of how kids learn and what they will take away from that, but also for parents at home who are reading that book with their child to have those points, those key points to touch on. That's brilliant. It's because, we are in a very complicated world.
Yes.
And we don't have a specific course in a classroom about empathy or forgiveness. Maybe we should be doing that, but we haven't gotten there yet. Thank goodness for your books,
Oh,
because there's such an important conversation for kids who are coming up, who will be adults before we know it, and who we want the generation coming behind us not to have to struggle to figure out these concepts when they're adults, um, rather than having that conversation with them from the beginning. I absolutely love it. You talked about speaking to the police, correct?
it was a law enforcement group.
I come from a healthcare background originally, a registered nurse, and I worked in the emergency department. Um, that must have been incredibly impactful for them to talk to you.
It I felt like it was incredible. And the head sheriff that brought me in wanted them to hear that because, they all didn't necessarily suffer from my trauma, yet they see trauma
Yeah.
and what they have to deal with, or even dealing with going to situations with a family where a child has been abused or sexually abused. And again, just they've suffered their own kind of trauma. And sometimes that's not easy for them to release. So it was an honor to be able to go and share that and then hear some of the stories after, even from a couple of men who hung back to share their own story. And one of them had never shared his story ever with another person before. And at least in that moment, he felt empowered enough to share it with someone.
Mm. That's so beautiful. And he felt safe with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. Well, and to go back to what you said earlier, that is the extreme value in sharing our stories, because maybe it helps guide someone else say it out loud for the very first time that hasn't been able to say it out loud yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I started this podcast to share other people's stories, because the power of it is you can't find it in any other way. Um, on my own journey, I learned from so many other people who went before me and how they conducted themselves. I inhaled so many books in the early days of my struggles.
Yep.
I watched so many YouTube videos. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even tell you. I had a playlist that went on for days of different things because I was just trying to understand what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And and so when people like you share your story, you take the lessons learned, you create something beautiful from it. Someone sees that path, and there's that quiet voice that's maybe that self-compassion voice that hasn't you haven't figured that out yet, but there's a voice inside them that says, well, maybe I can do that too. And that is how we heal each other, and that is our responsibility as humans to each other.
Amen. Yes. Amen, said the choir.
So let's talk about gratitude for a little bit. How do you incorporate gratitude in your daily life to kind of keep yourself on track?
I still do my gratitude journal in the evening. And I do encourage that through my book. But for myself, it is so important to just take, even if it's simply 2 minutes, 3 minutes at night, I can write down something, something that I'm grateful for, something that was good in my day. And once in a while, an evening will slip by and I don't do it. I'm just being honest. But I do try to do it most of the time because for myself, and I encourage people to do it any time of day. Hey, if you're a morning person, do it during the morning when you're having your cup of coffee or your cup of tea or lunch. Or for myself, it's evening because I just want to go to bed and go to sleep with something good, something of thanks for my day. Because for myself, I think it helps me when I do it at night.
Mhm. And some days I think that, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that in my younger days, I was of the thought that gratitude, it was kind of for the good days, for the blue skies, right? And I didn't realize that gratitude, that the power of it was truly when it was storming out. And
Absolutely.
that it is okay if the only thing you can find to be grateful for are the cleansing power of your tears. That's something to be grateful for. You don't have to have a great day to write in your gratitude journal. Some days are tough, and it's okay for you to be thankful for the tough day because that gives you perspective when you have a great day.
I love that. I love that. And I could not agree more. And I did a video last week. Our family had a tough week. We've had a lot of stuff going on. We've got several family members in the hospital and others going through some challenging times. And it felt heavy. It was a week that felt heavy. And it's so funny you say that about crying because I shared in my video the three things that help me when life feels crazy heavy. And number one was crying.
Yeah.
And it's not weakness. It is a release and it's a means to process, feel it and let it go. And then the second thing I talked about was gratitude. because even that teeny thing to be grateful for, even as you beautifully said, for tears, it makes a difference. It helps all of us. It really does.
It
So thank you
does.
for sharing that. But I agree totally.
And when I'm really grasping, my labs, we talk, we love our dogs. I can always get some gratitude by looking at them. I mean, you know, dog, God spelled backwards.
Not an accident.
I don't think that's an accident either. I mean, they teach us how to love without condition. And I learn from my four-legged family every day. Um,
Oh, yes.
so talk to me about you're involved in other organizations that raise awareness about child abuse. I think it was called NCAN. Talk to me a little bit about the work that you do with other organizations and how that not only helps others, but how it helps you.
Sure, absolutely. About shortly after my book came out, I saw a couple people on the fourth hour of the Today Show talking about their mission to end child abuse. And as they were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I talk about that in my book. I talk about that in my book. We have a lot in common. And so I reached out to them, and it was so amazing. They did reach back out. They wrote endorsements for my book, Broken to Beautifully Whole. But they had just started an organization called NCAN, standing for Ending Child Abuse and Neglect. And from that, our connection, we started having the first walk ever to defeat child abuse and neglect. Before that, there was never a walk in the world to acknowledge that, raise awareness. And so it was an honor to be able to do that. So I was the lead for the walk. I'm in Columbus, Ohio,
Mhm.
and I was the lead in Columbus, Ohio. And we've had 3 walks thus far. Working on bringing back the fourth one. We had to take a pause for a little bit, but it has been a privilege to being a piece and part of raising awareness to what can we do about this? How can we raise more awareness? And how can we encourage other people to step up and be a hero in the field of child abuse and neglect? So I'll just drop this in real quick, but one of the things we did was start a hero award. And why did we do that? Well, this doesn't happen and this doesn't improve without our heroes. And what a beautiful tribute, but to raise awareness to those people that are boots on the grounds doing something differently to help children, whether it's through awareness, whether it's through defeating, whatever they're doing. And then we also gave out an award for youth. We wanted to raise a hero in the youth community because why not shine a light on a child who is standing up for their peers and doing something to defeat bullying or to stop any other type of abuse that can start happening in school. So that has been huge. That has been transformative. And just real quick, that award was named after my mom.
Oh,
So my mom, her real name she was given was Gertrude. She hated that name, went by Bonnie, but my mom was an amazing chalk artist. And if she did a painting or picture that she liked and loved, she signed it Trudy. And the reason we named it the Trudy Award is because so many survivors do not have a parent or an adult that did what my mom did. Sadly, I can't tell you the amount of stories that anger me or frustrate me because when a parent or an adult found out, they took no action or they made excuses or said you interpreted it wrong or they said, what did you wear? Which that's a whole nother conversation. But
mhm.
my mom took the action to protect her family, even though she knew it was going to come with a financial hurt. And so having some type of awareness. So that's been amazing. The walks have been amazing. And we're excited to prepare for the next one.
That's beautiful. And I love that it's named after your mom. Because she sound like what a force of of a woman to, like you said, take such a step when there's lots of fallout from that. But she was a mama bear and tucked her baby in behind, and yeah,
And
that's
she did, and she deserved that awareness. And again, it's to shine a light on what every single adult and every single parent should do, because the number one thing anybody can do is
yeah,
believe believe the child enough to investigate. Let them know it was not their fault. Let them be seen, let them be heard, and do what it takes to protect them.
that is so true. So I have a question about, some of the feedback that you may have received from your work. And specifically, I'm just curious about the older generation and their response to it, because um, I'm old enough to remember that there's a generation that went before us that things just weren't talked about, things weren't discussed. It was just kind of everybody stays quiet. Some people may have known things happened, some people may have not known, but there was just no resolution. It was just a lifetime of hurt, in silence. And so I'm just curious if you've had any conversations about that generational change, because I think it's so beautiful that there is this big shift with our generation, and that we are talking about what needs to be talked about. But have you heard anything from the older generation?
I have, and that's a great question. And here's the good news. The majority, when they hear it and they think back, they're grateful that steps are being taken differently. They're grateful that there's people coming out that are saying, we can't keep sweeping this under the rug. We can't. Healing doesn't happen when it's swept under the rug. Healing doesn't happen when a family thinks it needs to stay a secret, because it'll hurt our family. This will hurt our family, or it needs to stay a secret because the uncle, the grandfather, the aunt, whatever it is, well, they probably didn't mean to. No, there has to be consequences. And so they're more outspoken and appreciate people coming forward to acknowledge that this needs to be done. I did have a couple that would say, well, why tell the story now? What's the point? If it's been 30, 40 years, what's the value in telling the story? And I share the awareness of it's demonstrative. First of all, for another survivor, as I gave the example when I talked to that law enforcement group, by hearing another one's story, if they can say it out loud, it's the very first step in healing, the
Hmm.
very first step. So maybe they've done nothing to heal and they're suffering inside. If they can take that first step of healing, that's huge.
Yeah.
And then again, there's strength in numbers. The more people that feel more comfortable saying it out loud, that's so important. Plus, it also starts to give us the reality of the numbers. If we
Yeah.
stay in silent, we have no idea what the true numbers are. And as a society, children and survivors, we need to know what the real numbers are. And I think when people hear that, they're able to look at it in a different way.
Yeah. And when you don't speak out, then that person who is silent feels like they're alone in this journey.
Exactly.
Um, I can only imagine what a new chapter, you talked about when you spoke to law enforcement for that one person the first time he had said it out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been life changing for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to be able to tell our stories. Um, so a lot of the work that I do is with the bereaved, so with the bereaved community, and um, you know, some are bereaved parents, but other people have lost other loved ones or siblings, and as I'm listening to you as we're chatting today, there is a component of grief to this, right?
Mm.
That you have to deal with when you are facing what happened and what happened to you, that was wrong. There's a grief for what has been denied you and what has been taken away. Can you speak to the grief part of it and how you approached it?
Absolutely. Um, there is no doubt there's a grief component because I lost that feeling of being safe as a child. I didn't have that. I didn't feel safe. I lost that innocence. And as you go through the healing process, even as an adult, you're so sad and grieve what you didn't have, what you deserved.
Yeah.
And it is not easy. It's a loss. It is a huge loss. And for myself, I think the pieces that helped me the most through that were self compassion,
Hmm.
because as self compassion and shame, kind of like I said earlier, can't sit side by side. And self compassion also plays a role in letting go of the grief.
Yeah.
More I can extend my self love and compassion, the more I can accept where I am and where I'm going. And then the other is gratitude. I think gratitude is huge when it comes to letting go of grief, because if we can allow more gratitude into our life and be grateful for what we have, no matter how small, no matter how small that thing is, it helps shift out the grief. So
Hmm.
I think self-compassion and gratitude are so important through that process, or at least they were for myself. Because again, as I said, like if I can feel good about something now or be thankful now, I'm not consistently focusing on what I lost.
Right.
It brings me more to the present. It brings me to the good. Doesn't mean you don't have that moment where you go back.
Hmm.
That's what happens to me now. That's real life. That's part of the evergreen healing.
Yeah.
But the gratitude helps along with the self-compassion to let go of the loss.
I'm so glad that you explained it in that way. And the reason being is that when I was looking at the work that you do, when I was looking at your life experience, one of the things, and I've been doing this probably about 15 years now, um, one of the things that I see is it's not just, grief is not just about death. And I've talked to so many people from all over the world who bring their stories, who feel safe enough to share them, and I feel very honored to receive them. Because truly, I often say to my husband, my true life purpose is to answer emails in my pajamas. Like that's my real life purpose.
That's a great goal.
I mean, I'm fine with that, right? But so often I see that we silo ourselves off. So I have been a witness to people who think, oh well, my grief is more intense than this grief, more intense than this pain, and that is a way of I don't diss that those individuals who find themselves in that mindset at that time,
Sure.
because that's where they are at that moment, and they can move forward from there. But I see people wanting to silo themselves off as a way of um, communicating the intensity of their pain.
Mm.
And when I booked you as a guest, I saw such an intersection that grief is not only about death. Grief is about the events that we go through life, and that if we can bridge the gap between me as a bereaved mother and you as a survivor of abuse, that we can help each other.
Yeah,
We were on different paths, but here we are. And we both put ourselves back together with that gold lacquer.
you got it. You got it. Exactly.
And so, that is truly, when I think about the purpose of this podcast, it is that. It is showing us, yeah, there's many ways that we all show up here, many different paths that brought us here, but we are all broken in some way, and we all have to find a way to put ourselves back together. And so that's why your story is so important. Um, I can't tell you, I know how many people are just going to be, this story is going to resonate with them so deeply. And I feel tremendously honored that you have been a guest on my podcast.
Well, the honor is on my end as well.
So, what's next for you on your journey? What are you going to do next?
I love that. That is good. Honestly, continue to help others in any way, shape, or form. Continue sharing the message of my first book, and to continue sharing the message within my children's books, because I believe this world is hurting right now in different ways. And we need a lot more good, and we need a lot more empowerment. And if we can plant seeds of resiliency and strength in different forms to help others, I think that's so important.
Absolutely. So, before we finish up, can you tell our listeners how they can find you and how they can find your books?
Absolutely. They can find myself at cathystuder.com, or they're welcome to send me an email at cathystuder4@gmail.com. And my books you can also find on my website, or you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or anywhere where books are sold.
Perfect. Um, so, listeners, I want you to reach out and get these books. And if you're a teacher, I want you to think about bringing these books into your classroom. The more that we can talk about these important topics, the better. Cathy, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you again. I'm honored. I appreciate this time with you, and I appreciate everything you're doing within your podcast to help others.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today on Broken Beautiful Me. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to heal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps spread the message of hope and resilience to more people like us. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and family. Together, we can create a community of strength and beauty in our brokenness. Until next time, stay strong, stay beautiful, and keep shining.